Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Worldwide.
I caused quite a stir with the title of this particular show. I guess I'm guilty of sort of giving some of my own attributes to the word militant. When I think militant, I have a specific, idea in my mind of what I'm talking about, as do we all. Webster's says that militant equals vigorously active and aggressive, especially in support of a cause, engaged in warfare, fighting. When I think of militant behavior, I think of so many people who I've encountered over the years who are confrontational to the point of just being toxic. I've seen these folks, their lives, their attitudes, their personalities seem sort of imbalanced. They are dominated by anger. Now, there's a time for anger. And what many people misunderstand is when I'm talking about an angry person, I'm talking about someone who is really defined by it. It is nonstop. It is rampant. It is their defining characteristic, and it puts everybody off. I'm not saying there's not a time to get angry. There is a time. There's a time to get active, time to get your hands dirty. But for the militant atheist, there's something else going on, or the militant anything. Everywhere they go, there's disruption, there's argument, there's raised voices, angry dialogue, insults, controversy, negativity. And I don't think it's just because they offended a theist or because the non-believer is, overcoming the obstacles of the culture or because there was a legal fight that was unpopular. I'm talking about instances where it's something more than that. There are some people out there, and this is unpopular to say, who are atheists that I don't necessarily want representing me, or atheism, skepticism, free thought, whatever, to the rest of the world. And yeah, you are a representative, especially if you put yourself out there. No, I'm an island unto myself. I do what I want. I think what I want. No one governs me. Yeah, right. No, what you do if you go out and wear an atheist brand or a rationalist or a non-believing brand, you go out there and you essentially posit yourself in front of the rest of your community, your region, your state, your country, your world. You reflect on everybody. Jeff sent me a message and it said, Militant Atheism, my ass. That title should be reserved for atheists who use force and coercion to convert people to atheism, of which there are extremely few, mostly relegated to the ranks of lingering communist political factions. Jeff says, I'm an outspoken atheist. I'm a passionate atheist. I'm above all a proud atheist, but I and no atheist I've ever met online or in person am not nor have ever been militant. Jeff says the atheist community has no reaction, not even surprise, when the latest Christian self-help book comes out, written by the millionaire owner of a megachurch who profits from lying to the chronically ill through faith healing to generate donations. Why? Because it's just another book on a shelf, and if people want to read it, they can. But on the other hand, Richard Dawkins writes a book espousing his own beliefs and positing cogent reasoning, and suddenly he and all of his, get this, his followers are, quote, militant atheists. I love the thinking atheist, but when we as a community do ourselves a disservice by even acknowledging this term as anything other than a gross misstatement and a tremendous insult. Thanks for the message, Jeff, very much. I understand the angry reaction to a culture where everything religious is allowed and welcomed. But I do stand by the assertion that some atheists simply go too far, or at the very least have lousy timing. They just don't choose their battles well, or everything is a battle. And I've met some people who are just, some people are just a horse's ass. I mean, they are. They only think about themselves, wildly immature, many of them, impulsive, unpleasant, just because they don't believe in any gods and they're out there, a self-imposed champion doesn't mean that they're good, productive people that should be supported. I realize for many that opinion is very unpopular. I also know that many good people who fight for reason are out there, branded by the religious as militant. They raise a hand of disagreement, and they have the discussions, the arguments, the debates. They're out there being agents of reason out there, and they are branded militant, and I understand the frustration when that happens. There's a church on every block, and everybody's silent. Hey, that's great. But you hold a once-a-year atheist convention, you get picket signs and news headlines. I get that. There's a convention coming up in 3 weeks in Oklahoma that I've been allowed to be a part of, called the Oklahoma Free Thought Convention. I have no idea what to expect. This is a highly, highly religious part of the country. You just never know. It's amazing when people, when and where they drag out the picket signs and come out and decide that they get to be as free as they want with their speech and their beliefs and their worldviews. But if you raise a hand of dissent and you have a convention of people who simply disagree and they want to get together and support each other and promote free thought, well, that's a problem. I understand that. I do understand the frustration. Your calls, your letters, as we talk about militant atheism, your definition of what is a militant person, atheist or otherwise. Am I using it incorrectly? Do you take offense to it? Do you have a different definition, different experience? And whatever you think on the subject is welcome. Let's start with area code 480. Thanks for waiting. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
This is Kate.
Hi, Kate. What's going on?
I've been an atheist for about 8 years. Never really came out to most of my family. My mother knows. But I couldn't really tell. Right now I'm living with my grandmother while I'm searching for jobs and things like that. But I can't really come out and tell her. But she's, I wouldn't call her extremely religious, but she's religious enough that I can't really tell her exactly my own beliefs. So I've been just very quiet about it. But the more she talks about it, the more I kind of, can't really go, well, okay, Grandma, that's not really how it is. Like, I found out she was a creationist without even knowing it, and so I've been kind of slowly introducing her to, the scientific view of, well, this is what science has to say about it. But I can't really come out and say, I don't really believe in God, Grandma. I can't really tell her that because part of me thinks she holds on to it because her husband passed away only about 4 years ago. So I think that's still fresh in her mind, and I think she uses now a religion as a way to, as a comfort. So part of me wonders should I be militant about it to be, to finally come out and say this is what I believe, or should I just stay quiet? Yes.
Kate, I don't see speaking honestly about what you believe as militant. I don't. You can have an argument with somebody. Geez, I had one a couple of days ago with a relative, and we were, there were raised voices. But, I don't see that as militant. I'm talking about people whose every action is about getting in your face, being confrontational, the raised voices, the nonstop. I think you should live truthfully. It's hard for that generation, in my opinion, to know what to do with the word atheist. It's very hard for them to embrace change. Many older people, not all, obviously. Do I think it's unhealthy for you to bite your tongue for the rest of her life? Probably not. I can't tell you specifically what to do, but my encouragement would be to just be yourself, and everybody else, it's on them to accept you for who you are.
Yeah, that's kind of basically what I've been doing is slowly, whenever I see a viewpoint that she's open to, I'll talk about it. There's some points I can tell she's going to shut down on me, when I start pushing it, and then she kind of just turns, no, this is how it is. I'm like, okay. There it gets to a point where she's not going to...
Yeah, they're saying they're not receiving. I get that. Well, I think, honestly, it has to be about you. You just say, look, I disagree, and here's why. And at the end of the day, let's enjoy each other, and that's, that's it. I don't think one is probably going to convince the other, but I don't think you should live in shame because you have a disagreeing worldview. You've added up the math, and you came to a different conclusion, and that's valid. I wish you the best, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Take care. Area code 612. Hi, thanks for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. What's up?
Hi, this is Justin. I understand the word you said with the militant thing, but despite a definition, a lot of people, they take that word differently. They think of the word militant. Like for me, I'm prior military, so when I hear the word militant, I think like insurgency type thing. And religion by default has a humongous persecution complex. I really think they do. And when they hear us say the word militant, they think, we're fighting them, actively fighting them, and they latch on to that, and they use that to defend themselves. They thrive off being persecuted. That's just my thing. I agree with a lot of what we do, but I think we should try and find a better word than militant. You know what I mean?
They think whenever we accost them with a contrary point of view that they are being persecuted, that we are, in your words, actively fighting them.
Yeah.
But aren't we fighting the dogma? Aren't we fighting an incorrect, something that's incorrect that's essentially being thrown out there as fact in our school systems, in our political systems, in our neighborhoods and homes? Isn't that something that should be fought actively?
Oh, I agree. I completely agree that should be actively fought. But, I mean, despite the textbook definition of what militant means, words take on different meanings in different people's minds. And to me, when I hear that word militant, if I thought of that from a religious viewpoint, I would think that they're attacking me. I don't know. It's just the word militant to me just means something more than just the definition. And I think that when religions feel like they're actively being attacked, that actually, they use that, the leaders of the religion use that to, I guess, tighten the yoke on the people that follow it, I mean, that's just my thought on it.
Thanks for the call very much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
I think, honestly, you could probably stand on the front steps of any public building, any private building. You could go anywhere with a pamphlet that said, "There is no God," and many would call you a malcontent or someone who is militant. I mean, I understand that type of branding takes place, and I think it's a subjective reflex. When someone has a weak argument, what they do is marginalize you. They circle the wagons, and they say, well, we got to totally defend ourselves against this rogue element out there. There's information that must be incorrect. They don't obviously ask you how you got to this conclusion. They just decide they're going to go on the defense. 803, thanks for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Hi, who is this?
Hey, this is Daniel. How are you?
What's up, Daniel? What's your take on the militant atheist? Accurate, inaccurate? What do you think?
I think I wanted to draw a distinction between kind of the public political militant movement, if you will. So, trying to make sure there's no state-endorsed prayer. They don't teach creationism. We have equal marriage. I think that's one side. And honestly, I don't mind being labeled as a militant when it comes to those things because I'm going to vote that way. I'm going to put my dollars where they need to go. And I'm not. It's fine if you want to call me a militant. The issue I want to bring up, though, is in day-to-day interaction with people. I think the reason a lot of people who are atheists tend to be labeled as militant and or abrasive and whatever label you want to put on people is that every time any conversation comes up, I think atheists tend to interject something that's controversial or interesting or to them, which is fine. I think it grates on people, and if someone's not at the point where they're willing to look into the truth on their own, they're probably not going to be willing to look into the truth because you said, "Oh well, I'm not gonna hold hands when we pray over dinner," or "I'm not gonna." When someone says something about, creation, you make a snide comment. There's a time and a place for that, but I think there's also a time and a place to keep your mouth shut. And that's, my family's all very religious. I've been an atheist for almost 3 years, and, it doesn't really get me anywhere personally with my family to bring things up. Does that make sense?
It does. I've seen a great example is I go back to Facebook. On my personal Facebook page, from time to time, you will see me post something that reflects my conviction that there is no God. The fact that I've added up the evidence, and I don't see anything that I reject, certainly the God of the Bible. And every once in a while, because it is part and parcel of who I am, I will include that. But I have seen that there are some people where every single post is just boom, boom, boom. Essentially, they're bombarding other people. And that, to me, is very off-putting. Yeah, I don't think you're going to convince somebody by beating them over the head. Every time you post something 5 times a day. I don't know that that's going to get you anywhere except deleted and ignored. Why not take a more of a well-rounded approach and be a real person kind of a thing? I don't know. Is that accurate? Do you think that's wrong?
That sounds correct. And I think, for me at least, that was a phase. And I kind of had to do some, self-criticism and say, wait a minute, I'm starting to piss people off around me. I'm not being the normal, polite person I am on a day-to-day basis. This matters to me, but, it's like the gay marriage issue. If every time anyone said something that kind of contradicted that, I interjected some huge argument, things wouldn't go very well. You know what I mean? It's just, it's almost like there's the distinction between, you can have your firm beliefs, but unless someone's open to it or interested in what you have to say, maybe we need more, more like in atheist groups, more attention paid to, hey, what phase of this deconversion process are you in? The first year and a half after you deconvert, it can be very difficult to find other people who share your beliefs. It can be difficult to kind of cope with the loss of the friends and the family, and a lot of people tend to revert to an angry position. And when you do that, the Christians in your life don't remember the healed, complete, normal Daniel 2 years after you've deconverted. They remember the angry person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
We don't have the support structure. I mean, that's one thing religion does have going for it. Is religion has a tremendous support structure for people to kind of help them through various phases of their life, and death or marriage or having children or getting old or being a teenager, and there's no secular support structure in place to help people through those phases. So we tend, as atheists, and I did it myself, we tend to act out a little more than we should.
Well, I will say I might have, I don't know if I overcompensated, but I was so hungry for information when I finally rejected God. And then the thinkingatheist.com and the videos and the podcast and all of this were born of that passion. And I was passionate. Now, you've heard my shows, right? You've seen my stuff. Do I come off as like an angry, unpleasant guy to you? I mean, do I seem toxic to you? I hope not.
Not at all. No, not at all. And you and 3 or 4 other YouTube atheists and people with podcasts who I follow, are very pleasant. And I think the key difference is you're putting your information out there. You're not knocking on people's doors and bringing it up at every conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a weird balance, and I don't apologize for being passionate and occasionally getting angry, but I really want more than anything else to be accessible. I mean, we're all real people. We have to interact together, and I think it's unhealthy to just isolate yourself and become a bullhorn nonstop. You just poison the well. I got to move on, man. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Take care. Let's go to a letter I got from Sarah in Texas. Sarah said, it's immeasurably important to protect the separation of church and state. When it comes to government offices using religious imagery, I think protest and debate is completely valid. I believe that approaching churchgoers at their church or stopping someone during a prayer does much more harm to atheism than good. This seems personal and unnecessary. I expect religion to stay out of my government, and I will agree to stay out of people's churches in return. However, each of these is particularly frustrating because the religious believe they will be and are being persecuted for their faith. Every time somebody challenges the state use of religious language and decor around the holidays, Christians who I know and love go into this self-righteous panic about being under attack. They lose sight of the fact that they truly have a majority, especially here in the States, where they have so much control that there is still a stigma attached to non-belief. It just validates what they've been told will happen. They are victims at the hands of the heathens. Area code 403. Thank you so much for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is Tony. I'm calling from Canada.
Hey, what's going on, Tony? What's your take today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to apologize. I haven't been able to listen to your program consistently since it started today, so I apologize if I'm repeating what other callers may have said.
No, go ahead.
To answer the question directly about militant, the extent to which militant atheism, should pursue confrontation, I think there have to be limits. In many respects, I live in a very religious community, and in my practice, I'm an early childhood specialist. I do intervention, psychology intervention, and so on, with early childhood development. And I work in very strong fundamentalist Christian communities. I work with a lot of children that come from families that, have a Calvinist background or a Mennonite background, et cetera. They have very, very strong faith-based community ideas and attitudes towards the world. And I must respect that, even though I am an atheist, and I have to be careful not to reveal my atheism under those circumstances. So I have to sort of implement a very tolerant and open approach to their lives, given my position. So for me, being militant is it's something that I have to very carefully choose when and where I choose to confront, religious belief. I think it's perfectly valid to confront religious belief if I'm being proselytized towards. For example, I've had a number of confrontations over the years with Mormon missionaries and, people on the streets approaching me with pamphlets and so on. And if I have the time and the inclination at that moment, I will definitely confront and argue and debate.
That doesn't
However,
listen to me, though.
Yes.
You don't
sorry, you go ahead.
Have the conversation. If you're even with passion presenting an opposing point of view, it doesn't have to be a militant experience. You're not beating them over the head, are you?
Oh, absolutely not. Although I've had my buttons pushed on numerous occasions when people in a position of being proselytizing or proselytizers, if there's such a word, the ante can be upped, right? People, when you confront people about their core religious beliefs, it's amazing how angry people can become and how quickly they can become angry. It's, I've experienced this on a number of occasions. And I usually, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll either continue to confront or I'll just walk away. Is this particular battle worth it or not? Some of the examples that you've given, I think, are a bit pushing the boundaries. I would never confront people at their place of worship, with protest signs. That's the equivalent of Westboro Baptist Church doing their ugly thing. And I really would feel that is definitely stepping over some kind of boundary of respect. I don't know. What do you feel?
Well, I stand in contrast to a great many people who are non-believers who simply don't care what everybody else thinks. And I'm not saying you live your life for the approval of others. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is
of course not.
What you do matters. How you conduct yourself, how you speak, how you approach others, how you are received and perceived, it does matter. You are not an island unto yourself. And so, while I'm far from perfect, I've always tried to move the website and the videos and whatnot forward, and I'll go after the dogma nonstop. But when it comes to the human beings, I really take a softer approach. I was a believer myself for so many years. I know they're not mentally retarded. I know they're not haters. I mean, I realize there are exceptions to that rule. There are some people out there who are driven by this kind of weird kind of hatred. There are the Westboros, but by and large, having seen from the inside out, look, the people who brand the religious community as all either insane or full of hate or mentally retarded are missing the larger picture. And I've always taken a softer approach about that. And that's, I think, probably why I think getting up in their face with a picket sign and screaming back and forth accomplishes nothing. And that's my take on it, for what it's worth.
Well, I would have to say that I generally, probably, well, by necessity too, in terms of my work, I do take the same position.
I mean, what's your perception?
And I have.
They're mostly good people, just good people living their lives, raising their kids. They're productive people. They're moral people. They don't hate others. They're just not.
Well, this is true, but I find that whether you come from a faith-based perspective or if you're, like myself, an atheist, human beings are complicated. And I'm stating the obvious. I realize that. One of the things that I find within the so-called militant atheist movement, which I fully support, is the idea that inculcating concepts of hell and punishment and fear of God, all of those issues have very serious consequences on the consciousness of young children and their development. And I tend to get a little militant on that issue because I'm often dealing with the consequences of those kinds of beliefs. And I'm afraid I agree with Richard Dawkins. I think that it is a form of child abuse to inculcate those kinds of deeply disturbing and frightening concepts into the minds of young children.
I'm glad you're out there having conversations in favor of reason. It's good to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
I can speak to the to the indoctrination of being. I think I actually spoke about it on another show. We were talking about how they had brought in a series of films called A Thief in the Night, and I'll spare the story again here, but I mean, it's essentially a story in film form about how Jesus raptures all of the believers away, and then Satan takes control of the earth, and everything goes to hell. I mean, it was crazy, executions by guillotine and people being carted off and incarcerated and terror and panic and monsters. And they showed this to young school children. I was part of a Christian school at the time. And I look back on it now, I do. I see it as psychological abuse. There's a Facebook page. I just ran across it months ago by accident. I was Google searching the films A Thief in the Night, and there's like a support page for people who got screwed up by A Thief in the Night as children, and they spent years coming out of it, and they have like a support Facebook page. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's one of those occasions, I think, when you have to stand up and get serious. Area code 831. Thank you for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, Seth?
Yes. Who's this?
This is Lindsay. Sorry. This is the first time I've been on here.
It's all good. You're among friends. What's up? What's your take?
I was just wondering, I actually had a question for you. I was wondering what you thought the line was in atheist propaganda between, just stating your opinion and, outright trolling. Because I've seen, I used to have a little, the little atheist A, like the new symbol, the logo thing?
I know it well.
When I went to middle school, I put it on my backpack, and I was just walking around, and I got so much crap for it. It was unbelievable. But I've seen other people with, the little Jesus fish on their cars, and it's... just tiny little things that say, I'm an atheist, this is my opinion. And I think that's kind of cute. But then there are other people who walk around with, the big T-shirts that say, hey, I'm an atheist, argue with me.
Well, this sounds like a cop-out. I really think it's a case-by-case thing. I don't see having an atheist symbol or a T-shirt or even speaking about the fact that you simply do not believe. You're at a dinner party and it comes up and everybody else is talking about religion and you say simply, you just volunteer it. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't see anything militant about that. You're an adult. You are simply stating an opinion. Now, if you were to walk in to a party of overwhelmingly religious people, and you are an invited guest, and they want to pray before the meal, and you raise a scene, that to me is inappropriate. You're a guest at someone else's event. It's not the time or place. And I'll bet real money they probably already know you and know you are an atheist. It's not like you're going to be telling them anything. There isn't a simple cut and dry answer for every circumstance. I honestly think you just have to go case by case. But as far as you're concerned, if you wanted to hold an atheist symbol and keep it on your stuff, I don't see anything militant about that. Do you?
No, not really. It's just that I live in Northern California, not exactly the most Christian part of the country, but it's all the same. I was just sitting in class one day, and then I heard these guys were talking about going to catechism later on, and they said to me, so hey Lindsay, how come I never see you at catechism? And I say, I don't really go to catechism. And they say, well, do you believe in God? And I said, no. And then just from then on, I got the crap every single day, and it was annoying.
It says something about them, though. I mean, think about it. You can exist in the room where they believe in God and they go to catechism classes, right? And you're like, whatever. Yeah. They are in the same zip code as you. They're in the same space as you, and you do not believe in God, and they can't sit still. I think that's a reflection, really, of them, isn't it? They have to have you agreeing. They have to save you. They have to fix you. They have to change you because you're broken, and they can't rest unless they do. I think that speaks to them. I think the cooler you are about it, the more credible you look.
But other times, though, I've seen people walking down the street and saying, with a big T-shirt that says, religion is stupid, you guys suck. But not those words, but like that same message. And then, that's like, I'm like, you're just walking down the street. What are you trying to do? What goal are you trying to accomplish with this? It's like, it's the same people who walk down the street with the huge metal crosses hanging down their neck. They look like they weigh 100 pounds.
Well, you have to understand, you're talking to a guy who sells atheist T-shirts to support the video production that I do. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think that it was good to go out there, as long as it is, number one, representing that the religious are not the only ones out there who are branding themselves, who are not out there being a billboard for what they believe. And the second thing is, I think it is healthy for those who are religious to see that there is a contrary point of view. Sometimes they're made to be provocative. I have one that says science, it works, bitches on it, and it's got some science stuff on it. I've got another one that says religion, it's like history without the facts. Again, these are provocative, but they're meant to raise, to get someone to ask. I mean, they're supposed to be provocative. But I don't know if I consider those, wearing one of those, militant. I mean, I might be wrong. I might be totally blind to it. Do you think so?
Well, I've been a part of PETA for a few years. I've been to a few protests just because I'm really, really passionate about animal rights. You're not throwing blood on people, are you? No, I don't go to the really bad ones.
All right, good to hear. Thanks.
But hold on, I got to sneeze. Oh, okay, sorry. I got a lot of T-shirts from them. Because I work with them so often, and they usually get them for free. And then I have they have the saddest T-shirts. There's there's a cartoon elephant that's crying. It says, "Circuses are no fun for me." And then there's a little chick that says, "I am not a nugget."
Wow.
They're really cute, but then the thing is, I signed up for this camp called Youth Empowered Action Camp. It's a really cool thing, and it's down in Santa Cruz. That's sponsored by PETA, where the people who are under the age of 18 are supposed to go to, state their views and say how they can help and figure out ways that they can become active in what they believe. And I thought it was a really great idea, and because that place is sponsored by PETA, I would bring my T-shirts to go there, to wear there, because it's a cool thing to do. And I wear the T-shirts at protests, but I would never just walk down a street and say it with a shirt that says "meat sucks." It's just, I don't know. It just feels like
it's a complex
you're kind of whoring your opinion.
It's a complex issue. Look, I think I'm a huge animal lover. And having said that, I had a burger for lunch. I'm one of those people who I believe that if the animal is bred for it, I'm all right with it, But at the same time, anyone mistreats a dog or a cat or something like that, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm livid. But I will say that the people in PETA, I think, who are throwing blood on everybody else are doing more damage to the cause of animal rights than anything else. They're getting headlines, but in my opinion, they're not gaining credibility. I think you can probably make further inroads and be a little more productive, a little more positive, at least a little more mature about it than showing up and just screaming at the top of your lungs and throwing, toxins over the opposition. I got to move on. I appreciate your call very much.
All right, thanks, Ed. Bye.
Take care. Thank you. With cheese, ketchup, mustard, pickle, little lettuce. So good. 423, hi, who's this? Thanks for calling the Thinking Atheist podcast. What's your name?
Hi, this is Brendan.
What's up, Brendan?
Hey, I think that this is a really interesting topic, and I think part of the reason is because the term militant, I feel, is really based on the individual's perspective. So, like you said, you put out products such as T-shirts, things like giving out pamphlets, which a lot of the religious people do, but I think that if they came from an atheist, that doing things like that might seem militant in their perspective.
I've had some people ask me to put the assume nothing, question everything, and start thinking with the Thinking Atheist logo on a bumper sticker, and I'm working on that as we speak. Now, if you drive down the street and you've got a have you thanked your God today bumper sticker, everybody says, oh, that's sweet. If you went down and you were to have an atheist bumper sticker on the back, people would call you militant, would they not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually feel that there's nothing wrong with the more aggressive version of atheism that I think is more recent than more of a recent phenomenon. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and I think that a reason for that being, I'm actually a recent atheist. I was a Christian for the first 24 years of my life, and it was actually the Bill Maher documentary that started to get me questioning some of my previous indoctrination, and he almost sort of ridicules religion in a way, and so when I watched that, I went to YouTube and I started watching videos, and I came across a show. I'm sure you've heard of the guys in Austin. I forgot the name of them, their podcast or their show.
Oh, you're talking about Matt Dillahunty, the Atheist Experience.
Yeah. So I saw those guys, and those guys can be pretty aggressive when talking to some of their callers.
Yeah, but Matt's going to be with us at the Free OK convention. I don't see Matt as militant at all. I mean, I see him as a passionate guy, but honestly, he actually has conversations when he's had theists, religious people call his show, and I think by and large he handles them pretty well. He actually has dialogue. He gives them information. He challenges them to respond. He allows them to respond, unless they're just trolling. I don't know that Matt's qualifies as being a militant. I just think he's on the forefront. He's out there and he's passionate.
Yeah.
I mean, I ridicule religion. Have you seen the video where I've got Jesus holding automatic weapons and making out with Mary Magdalene? I mean, yeah. I will ridicule the dogma all day, but how you approach human beings is a slightly different thing.
Yeah, and I actually don't think that there's anything wrong with ridiculing religion. Actually, one of my friends, who's also a recent atheist, she actually feels that the more aggressive form of atheism, I think that the way that she feels is that you're not necessarily going to convince people, I guess, by being overly aggressive, and that's where I think that we disagree. And I'm just in full support of what you do and what Matt does, and I think that if we can get to the point where criticizing religion is not necessarily taboo, which I think was the case for a long time, and I think that the more that you do what you do, and that Matt does what he does, and Bill Maher and all these people they're pushing the message that it's not necessarily taboo to question a lot of these things. There are going to be people like me who are on the sidelines. I might not necessarily be the person that you're arguing with, but I might see that argument, and that might be the catalyst to me going and eventually, seeing that a lot of these things that I've been indoctrinated to believe are not necessarily true.
After 24 years, I'm glad you made it out. Thanks for a great call. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
When I was a believer, 10 some years ago, 15 years ago, no one could have convinced me. If I had watched one of my own videos, one of the Thinking Atheist videos when I was 25, I would have been offended. I would have been like, oh, they totally missed it. I wouldn't have even considered. But I will say that it was seeing the information out there and coming to the realization that there were a great many people who rejected the idea of God, especially the biblical God for me, allowed me, it sort of allowed me to give myself permission to doubt and to start asking the questions under the surface. You don't really admit it to yourself at first. You say, well, you don't want to tell anybody. Ask it quietly, maybe God won't hear. And then you get to the point where you think, wait a minute. When did I give up the right to have my whole life make sense? When did I give that up? And then you become more bold and you say, wait a minute. Why shouldn't I challenge God? And then you become even more bold. And before you know it, you finally bring a little bit of objectivity to the evaluation of your faith. Some people ask me, why do I mock religion? Why did I create the Jesus the Revenge video where he's holding automatic weapons and making out with Mary Magdalene? Why do that? Why do that to the story of Jesus? Well, honestly, it was kind of therapeutic to live your whole life fearing, questioning. You don't want to question. You don't want to offend. You don't want to tread softly, tread softly, tread softly. To be able to turn that notion on its ear and just outright mock, just for the hell of it. It's liberating. It's freeing. That's why I did it. Some people get it. Some people think it was a waste of time. They think it doesn't help anybody. But for me, I thought, honestly, it is liberating to be able to take something that was a sacred cow you couldn't touch, you can't challenge, certainly, and to just turn it on its ear. Just turn up the volume and say, actually, yeah, I will mock. Let's go to the phones. Area code 610. Thank you for waiting. Who's this?
Hi, this is John. Thanks for having me.
John, what's going on?
I just wanted to touch on something, talking about attacking the dogma versus attacking the person. I think it's part of human nature, not necessarily even just in the religious, but, you see it in science, you see it, with their theories where, people are very, very attached to what they believe, and it's difficult, regardless whether it's religious or not, to separate what you believe with your own understanding of yourself. So the moment you challenge someone, it's going, unless they're, very practiced in debate and understand, they're going to feel personally offended, and that's the case, where people have scientific theories that they blindly want to be true, and so will eventually, find, quote unquote, the evidence for. And I think it's a part of human nature that needs to be taken into account, because religion is not unique in that aspect, and you need to be willing to understand that though you should expect someone to make the effort to overcome their own personal attachment to their ideas and view them objectively, it's not something that, all these religious people, can't get over their ideas. It's something that everyone has to deal with in every aspect of their life.
That's well said, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for calling the show today.
Thank you.
If you attack a dogma that someone takes personally, then it's probably going to be personal, isn't it? That's how it will be received. I'm going to try a Skype call again. 111 is on my switchboard. Hi, who's this?
Hello?
Hey, who's this?
Oh, hey, Seth. This is Tom.
Tom, talk to me. What's your take on the subject today?
I wanted to talk a little bit about politics and religion a little bit, if you don't mind.
Does this have anything to do with militant atheism, or?
I'm going to get to that.
All right.
I'm a libertarian, and I think the left is completely out of control here. I think you could agree with me on that. And the right, I like the right as far as their physical, conservative and stuff, but then it seems like the religious is really hijacking the right, and they're having fights about abortion when there's $14 trillion in debt, and that just seems ridiculous to me. What do you think of that, Seth?
Let me answer your question off the air very quickly, okay? This isn't really related to what we're talking about. I just think here in America, both parties are wildly out of control. I just do. I think abortion is something that needs to be discussed and debated. I think it's a very important topic. The left will always blame the right for the world's problems. The right will always blame the left. It's just the way it is. And it marginalizes people. It takes what are very complex worldviews and political views, and it reduces them to toxic brands. People do it all the time on both parties. Both are guilty. I feel like at this point in my life, I'm a man without a party. I'm a fiscal conservative. I believe in low taxes. I believe in the fair tax. I believe in private enterprise. I believe in the individual and individual responsibility. I want a small government, a small fiscally responsible government with officials elected by the constituency, by the people, who hold them accountable. But honestly, we live in a culture where people know more about Paris Hilton than they do about their own elected officials. I mean, people are running rampant. And it's difficult. The right frustrates me because it has been hijacked by the religious. The left frustrates me because it brands the right as governed by hate, and that's not necessarily the case. I don't know. It's something that it's probably a whole other show and a half. And quite frankly, I've already done one show on politics, and I'm kind of done. I'm just kind of done. What I don't like is for people who have differing points of view to get in the same room, and immediately it's nothing but name calling. When did we stop being human beings, sharing our ideas and ideals and opinions and making ourselves better? And if we disagree at the end of the day, we simply disagree. Where's the discourse? Where's the dialogue? When did we stop talking to each other? When have we only been sending and not receiving? And the same can be true for the religious or the atheist. The militant person goes out and they send and do not receive. They have no idea how to empathize with another point of view. They simply go out and bullhorn themselves to the point where they repel everybody in their zip code. Nobody wants to be around them. Well, that's not productive for anybody. 724, thank you for waiting. Hi, who is this? You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast.
Hi, this is Johnny.
Johnny. I got lots of Johns today. What's going on, Johnny?
Yeah, what's up? I interact with you a fair amount on Facebook and stuff like that. Lately, it's Sunday, and around here it's very active with a lot of the Christian stuff happening. And as far as the militant atheism, I myself am an atheist, and I find it hard to be militant about it because of my neighborhood. So it's like picking battles doesn't really happen. It's just, for me, most of the time I have to keep my mouth shut for fear of violence. So
you fear violence?
Yes.
What are we talking about?
I live very close to West Virginia.
I mean, you fear that someone will take physical action against you? Or they're gonna just beat you up in an alley somewhere for rejecting their God?
I've been beaten up before for getting into a debate about religion, yes. But it was interesting. I was able to keep my cool the entire time, and the other person it was like it got to a point that they had that vein throbbing in their forehead.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just sitting here like, why are you getting so upset? And for them, it was too much, and they flipped out and punched me in the face. So
now, what does that tell you about them, though? What does it tell you about them? It tells you that they can't take it. They can't stand it. And then they have to resort to what? Physical violence? I don't know anybody in my circle who would take it to that degree, but apparently you met somebody. So now what? Are you the only non-believer in your circle? Are you completely alone?
I feel that I am the only non-believer in my area code sometimes. There is a 10-foot tall crucifix in my front yard. I took it down and my parents flipped out and put it back up. So it's pretty...
Wait, your mom and dad put up a 10-foot cross in your yard?
Yeah, well, our yard. I cannot afford to move out yet.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's...
Well, I mean, it's their house. You're stuck there. You know, if they're paying the mortgage, they can, I mean, whatever. You know?
Well, between you, me, and the radio people, I was drunk when I took it down, but I just got tired of looking at it.
You know, in the church, they called that communion, but it's a whole other deal.
Yeah, that was before I quit drinking, though.
Well, you know, honestly, you know, you're in a tough part of the country. I mean, I think we both are, but understand you're not alone. I hope the Thinking Atheist community and some other atheist online communities and elsewhere are helping you to be reminded that you're not completely alone. There are a tremendous number of people out there who have your back, okay?
It's good to hear that. I mean, being an artist in this area is very hard. And when I say this area, it's because most people around here, the only culture that they want is the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's about it.
Yeah, so, I understand.
Trying to be a writer is tricky. Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best. Thank you for being a part of the community. Thanks for the call.
Thanks for taking my call. Take care.
Take care. Can you hear the police report, sir? You stand accused of drunken removal of a religious icon. I'm sorry. Who puts a 10-foot cross in their front yard? What an eyesore. Have you seen the ones, they're in different parts of the country? They're like 200 feet tall. There's usually a series of 3 of them, and the center cross is, I think there's one in Baton Rouge, and there's some others around the country. And I got to think, anybody living in that general area, driving by, I know it's on private property, but you have to just look at it and shake your head and go, first of all, how much of that money could have been used to feed the hungry or to improve, you know, our community in some tangible way or whatever. But no, let's take a 200-foot tall cross and shine spotlights up on it so we can feel really, really good about ourselves. Area code 518. Thank you for waiting. Who's this?
This is James.
James, what's going on?
Not much. Personally, I believe that militant atheism and even strong and brash atheism that might not be particularly militant is counterproductive to the cause. Because, I mean, most atheists that I have talked to, and I may be wrong about this, it's usually a personal journey sparked by an outside catalyst, you know, and a catalyst that cannot be argued with on the spot. And I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. You're saying that militant atheism is what? It's a reactionary thing from someone who has been provoked in some way? I mean, help me out.
I'm saying that militant atheism is very good for making yourself feel better about yourself.
Oh.
Making yourself feel intellectually superior to another person. But it does not help convert souls.
Yeah, well, you got to believe in a soul first.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's a passive phrase, but
I got you. Well, I will say that, you know, in my few years here, being a part of the atheist community, I have been struck by 2 things. First of all, when I was a believer, I was always under the impression, I was given the impression that those who are atheists, who reject God, are unhappy, immoral, rudderless, sad, depressed people. I mean, there is this stereotype that is propagated in religious circles that people without God cannot be happy. They don't have a light in their eye. They don't have a spring in their step. They have no purpose. They're simply organisms waiting to die. And that's essentially what I had always expected. And what happened is that I realized that there were so many people who were just filled with good humor, and they love people, and they love their kids, and they work hard, and they love to laugh. They have wonderful senses of humor, and I realized that none of the stereotypes were accurate. with a couple of exceptions. And that was the second thing that I found out, is that there are some people who are defined by just malice or just unhappiness or rampant ego. And I don't know if they're covering an insecurity, or maybe they really do think they're all bad, but all they do is sit around and say, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, the rest of you are idiots. If only you were as enlightened as me. Quite frankly, I just blink until those people go away. Yeah, they're not worth your time. You will never convince them. You shouldn't give them an audience. They will be in every atheist forum that you go in. They will be very small but very loud. And I treat them like a car alarm. After a while, when the neighbor's car alarm goes off 15 times, you just stop listening. That's exactly how I feel about those people. And then after a while, you just go clip the wire. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks a lot.
Take care of yourself. I got time for a couple more here very quickly. I did have an email from Ajay in India. I said, first off, I'd like to thank you for the wonderful and inspiring work you've been doing here. I've been an ardent follower, advertising it to whoever I can, and I want you to know your work is definitely something that keeps people like me going, especially in a country like India where I reside. Everybody is extra religious, and although they don't agree with each other on their religious views, they definitely unite to crucify, so to speak, atheists and all atheistic or truly secular views. In a society like this, I must say that militant atheism is necessary. But I must admit that I'm not sure if it's worth the danger here. Complete isolation from society is what you're looking at if you say the words, I don't believe. Ajay continues, I have mixed feelings on militant atheism in itself, as I feel that we shouldn't take it too far and make a big fuss about things when it comes to trivial things that don't affect us. But in the case of legislation, I believe religion should be kept at bay, just as in the case of having to go to religious places of worship as a cultural norm. I believe that people should be able to do whatever they want as long as it doesn't affect other people negatively. In short, militant atheism is definitely something we need and is going to transform our societies, just that we should follow it in a more slightly subtle manner. Area code 847. Thanks for your patience and thanks for waiting. Who is this? 847. Hi, who's this?
Hey, it's Dana from Belvedere, Illinois. How are you?
What's going on, man?
Hey, I'd like to bring it back to the Facebook thing. I'm a huge Facebooker. Oh, there goes the dog.
No, it's all right. They're welcome on this show, too. It's all right.
She's also an atheist. Anyway, about the Facebook thing, there was a point where Facebook kind of turned into my soundboard, and people were a little taken aback by it. I lost some friends, but some people kept me. Some of the Christians, some fundamentalist Christians kept me. But we ran into something a few weeks back that was kind of weird, and I don't know if I posted this on your page or not, but here in Illinois, the personalized license plate, somebody I went to high school with actually got a personalized license plate that said GODRULZ. God rules, right? Okay. So she's a pretty heavy duty Christian. I don't know what her specific denomination is, but her, it's always, God did this for me, and God did this for me, and God did this for me. And I get a little irritated after a while. So finally I spoke up, and especially with a license plate, I said, she just wrote like bug. And then she starts telling everybody how people would slow down and look at it, and they would comment on it. Oh, how great that you would, that you have so much faith in God that you would put him on your license plate and what have you. And so I was like, well, people are slowing down, taking a look at your license plate while you're in motion. You're creating a traffic hazard. And so my point is here, to kind of tie into your other caller about random violence. Is that still there?
I'm still listening. You have my rapt attention.
Okay. So and all of her friends started attacking me and saying, I feel sorry for you and what have you. And of course, in a nation where basically we have this like weird theological national hybrid now of kind of like you've got like your Declaration of Independence in one hand and a Holy Bible in the other. I see a lot of people who are like morphing into this like weird kind of like, I don't know, ideology. Well, anyway, so I made a comment that basically said, well, it wouldn't work the other way, would it? Like, my car would be vandalized if I got a license plate that said no God on it. And she was like, no, Christians wouldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, sure they wouldn't.
I think the majority of Christians wouldn't touch it, but I do think, yeah, you're going to find some rogue elements out there. They're going to wait till your car is parked and go out and decide to defend their God by defacing your private property. Yeah, that possibly would happen.
And what I don't think they appreciate is the fact that they have the luxury. I mean, we need to be in terms of militants. I do think that we need to be outspoken, because if we don't, it's kind of the same thing that happened. Like, I don't know. Do we have to go back to like civil rights for African Americans or back further to Indians or what have you? I mean, if the problems aren't brought to the forefront, then this national Christian thing is just going to escalate to the point where, somebody like Michelle Bachmann will be in the White House and gay marriage will be illegal across the board. I mean, do you think that could actually happen? Your thoughts?
Well, I honestly don't think we should ever roll over because we have an unpopular worldview in a religious culture. I don't ever advocate that. When I say that I don't necessarily believe that being overtly militant, in your face, shouting at the top of your lungs 24/7 is productive. That doesn't mean that I don't think we need to be out there on the front lines and having the debate and promoting. And I think there are times when you have to go legal with it. Now, where I run into a gray area is, it's a no-brainer for me if somebody is trying to teach the Adam and Eve story in public school as a instead of evolution or alongside evolution, as if it has equal merit. I think there's no-brainer. You have to get legal. You have to have the attorneys involved. You have to take it to court. You have to fight to make sure that the integrity of the educational system is preserved. That's my personal opinion. Where I have a gray area, where I have a hard time is, there's a fire station on the corner on Christmas Eve, and they have a nativity scene out with a little plastic baby Jesus in it. And somebody gets their panties in a wad, and they go out there with picket signs, and they want to file a lawsuit about that. Those are the types of things where I can't help it in my gut. I'm just thinking, don't we have better things to do with our time? Now, I realize by the letter of the law, we're right. That's a religious scene, and it's on public land, city land. I understand that we are in the right, but is it counterproductive to go out there and just be kind of sour about a plastic baby Jesus when there are so many other bigger battles for us to fight? That's where I really have a kind of an internal war, and even now I don't know where I stand on it. I sort of change my mind every 5 minutes.
A plastic Jesus does not make isn't really a violation of civil rights. In fact, you could even call it free speech to a degree.
Whatever.
But if it's on public property, though, I mean, it's on like if it's in front of a courthouse or what have you. I mean, then it becomes kind of a bigger gray area. I mean, don't you think? I get that, and they have the Ten Commandments in the courtroom. I mean, those are battles, and obviously they will always paint us as the malcontents, the people who are trying to undo what was a God-ordained justice system. Blah blah blah. I mean, I think those things have to be fought. It's the smaller stuff, the minutia, that even though we're right, is it really the best use of our energies, of our resources? If the firemen want to have a little baby Jesus on the front lawn, do I really want to divert my energies to filing a lawsuit to get the plug pulled on the little baby Jesus? I don't know. These one of many questions for the ages. Thanks for the call very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
Reminds me of that song, Well, I don't care if it rains or freezes, as long as I got that plastic Jesus sitting on the dashboard of my car. You ever heard that song? There's a whole other verse to it. I don't even know what it is. I guess I got time for one more here very quickly. I'd like to think I'm passionate about speaking out against what I used to believe. And I also want to make sure that my life is balanced. And I've really tried to do a better job this year of Because for a while, I was kind of pissed off. I think when you finally objectively see programming, all those years in Christian school, all those years in church, all those years in Sunday school, all the mealtime prayers, all the bedtime prayers, all the talks about heaven and hell and angels and all the supernatural that I as a child never had the opportunity to challenge. I just didn't. It was fact. They taught Bible verses right alongside science and math and English and world history. And I think about all the junk that I adhered to for so long. I'll admit it. I was angry, and that anger, at some level, drove me, and sometimes it drove me productively. But I will say I've come to the point in my life when I feel like it's time for balance. I want to, when I go out to Free OK and become part of that event on the 30th of July, it's going to be a positive day. We're going to have people from all over. We have people driving in from Colorado, I guess. People flying in from, somebody said New Mexico to Oklahoma for a one-day event. Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ra, myself, several other people going to be there. We're just going to connect. It's going to be positive. Are we going to have some fun at religion's expense? Yeah. Are we going to have some fun at each other's expense? Yeah. But I want it to be about more than just having a middle finger at the rest of the world. Whatever. 856, thank you so much for waiting. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hello?
Hi, who's this?
This is Matt.
Matt, thanks for calling. What do you think?
From Arizona.
Awesome.
I just wanted to say real quick, the whole calling it militant atheism kind of bothers me in the sense that a militant Muslim or militant Christian picks up a gun and a militant atheist just uses his or her words. I don't think
so. You think Westboro Baptist Church picks up weapons? No, but I consider them to be militant.
Well, they also, threaten violence and things like that, which I wouldn't say that none, but very, very few atheists have done in the past.
So you object to my use of the word militant because you believe that it implies someone is taking lethal violence against another.
Well, I don't object to just your use. I just think that that's, not a good term for anyone to use, but I know that that's what it's going to be called and what it is in our world, and you can't really change that. But I just, think it's an unfair comparison to be made.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for
I use the term myself.
All right. Thanks for calling the show today. I appreciate it.
Yep.
I've been wrong before, and I know that we all sort of have different meanings to different words, but for me, the word militant does not imply necessarily, you're picking up a weapon. For me, anyway, when I think militant, religious, militant, atheist, whatever, I think somebody who's just just an F5 tornado everywhere they go. Area code 252. Thank you so much for waiting. Who's this? 252. Hi. Who's this?
Thomas.
Thomas, thanks for calling.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yes. I'm an atheist, and I found this particular broadcast to be of special relevance to me because I'm often labeled as such. One of the habits that I have is my girlfriend and I go downtown, and we'll make like a whiteboard, and we'll just posit a question to people. It could be, and I don't actually go up with a pamphlet, and say, hey, have you heard, or anything like that. But I'll just posit a question like, let's say, what thought or action would actually merit eternal punishment? And just something to get people to think. And then if they want to, I'll sit silently by the sign. They can come up and ask me, what's this about? At which point I can expound. They can give me their 2 cents, vice versa. I really try to have the mentality that my enemies are ideologies, not individuals. I won't automatically assume that someone is an extremist. It starts off as a conversation, especially if I feel like they're maybe a little more liberal or moderate. It can become a debate, which I'm not, I have no aversion to. But the point is that with this sort of thing, I actually remember a comment on your thread, you may have seen it, where someone said, well, people should keep this to themselves, just like people should keep their religion to themselves. Otherwise, you risk becoming a zealot, which is what you disdain in the first place. My point with that is that, well, was Martin Luther King Jr. a black zealot? were people who go and talk with others about gay tolerance by evoking the Matthew Shepard tragedy, etc., gay zealots. Was Susan B. Anthony a feminist zealot? So really, no minority has ever won ground for its cause without being passionate and outspoken about its plight. It's not just about the absurdity of the beliefs, because really what another person thinks alone doesn't harm me at all. The problem is that when thoughts become actions, and those actions are taken to limit the rights of another group, basically when you're voting against their rights to be in office, when you're trying to vote creationism into schools and then encroach on those particular enterprises, then the only thing I can think of is an equal and opposite reaction.
No, I've heard the Rosa Parks example, I think I agree completely with you. I mean, there is a time to get out there and stir the pot and to put yourself on the front line, and there is a time to be angry. There's a time to be passionate. You and I are in complete agreement. I think the whiteboard is a great idea. Tell me, what kind of response do you get? Do people walk up to you and answer the question, or do they begin a debate? I mean, what kind of reaction do you get?
Well, honestly, I'll admit I've gotten positive responses from both sides. There are atheists, of course, who appreciate me showing solidarity. There are people who have come to me and said, like, I'm kind of in the closet, but it's neat seeing someone do this, especially in North Carolina. I'm in the United States in North Carolina, and this is the Bible Belt, and 4 out of 5 people, statistically, probably do not approve of what I'm doing. But I've had conversations with Christians who actually said, thank you for your thoughts. Thanks for provoking my mind into pondering these questions, especially that last one. And then again, I do, of course, get some people threatening me because this is downtown, and there are going to be, for one, drunk people. And also, even so, I've had Marines threaten me and this and that and the other thing, but overall, pretty good. Sadly, there are people who come up to me, and when I go to posit something to them, they're like, wait a minute, just want to know, what are your beliefs? Is there a God or no God? And I'm like, well, it's not quite so black and white and simple, because to me, I'm atheist, I'm anti-theist against the Abrahamic gods and things of that nature, whereas I'm agnostic about deism, or the idea that there's a hands-off approach, the watchmaker universe, etc. So, what they're basically getting at is, if you're against God, the conversation is over, I don't want to listen to anything else you have to say, and they'll walk away. And that's what's really sad to me, is when someone has closed off their mind. If someone's positing an opposite perspective, if it's coming from someone who doesn't agree with them by default, they're automatically closed to the experience. And that's what really is lamentable to me, that where people imprison their minds to that extent.
I think it's a great idea. And honestly, I don't see anything about anything that you have done as militant. Now, if you walk into a church service or even a restaurant, you can just start holding it around, hey, everybody. But if you're just out there, you're passive, you're doing your thing, and you're positing a legitimate question to see what reaction you get, I think that's, honestly, kind of wish I had video cameras on it. What an interesting afternoon that would be.
Yeah, I'm actually on my way. I was on my way to go do it, and I checked my Facebook. And I saw your podcast was going to be on, and I was like, Jolene, we're going to be an hour and a half late for that. I've got to stay on the phones for this. So, overall, that's the thing. If I pass a church billboard, and I do, there's one about a mile from me that says, America was built on Christian values. If I see a church have a marquee that says this, and then I'm going to go downtown and posit my perspective, we're really just getting equal time, and really we can't even begin to talk about equal time because we know who's had the bully pulpit for far longer. So, but yeah, I appreciate your support.
Well, I'm honestly, if you can take a phone photo or something and put it on Facebook, I'll repeat it out there so everybody can take a look if you want. I'd be curious to see that. That's a clever idea.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
All right, thanks for the call. Thanks for being a part of the show today. Ultimately, I take a lot of heat. Some people say I'm a softie, and I can be, but I enjoy maximizing and highlighting the human experience, living a life, a good life, a happy life, a joyful life, a very challenging life sometimes, but a life without the need of God or gods or superstition or dogma or the fear of hell, anticipation of heaven. You don't need an afterlife to have a wonderful life here. I'm honestly excited to be a part of a culture where people are emboldened, where they can stand out on the street corner. You know, he knows there might be consequences, but he's going to go out there and he's going to just ask a legitimate question. That's not militant. I think it's a great idea. You and I were over dinner. We're at a party with friends. We're talking here. We're on the phone. We're on the internet. We're on a blog. We're on a forum. We're wherever. And we present a counter argument to the religious one. And we say, look, I don't buy it, and here's why. Will there be people who brand us? Always. They take them and leave them. But I will guarantee you there are people out there who are listening. You're not wasting your time. Not with everybody. Quite frankly, many of the people who don't even engage but are just simply sitting and listening in the wings. They're listening with rapt attention to find out what's going to be said next because they're nursing their own doubt under the surface, trying to decide what they do and do not know or believe. How much of this are they going to buy? Are they at a crossroads in their life? But I think it's incumbent upon us to be productive, positive people. You know, don't be a douchebag. Don't sour the room. Don't poison the well. Don't be toxic to other people. You have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to try to be the best people we can be. And those who say, I'm going to do whatever I want and screw everybody else, quite frankly, I don't get it. I understand it, but I can't support it. We should be magnets. We should be people who are attracting others whenever possible. Thanks so much to everybody for a bunch of great calls and for some great dialogue on what has been a topic we could probably do another show on. Thanks for supporting the page. And again, for everybody who are planning on coming out on July the 30th to Oklahoma to Free OK, you can find out more about the event at freeok.org. Tickets are dirt cheap. Going to be a great time. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you next time.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on The Thinking Atheist YouTube channel and visit